The night had fallen, all the dogs had gone silent. The lights in the windows of the houses had been extinguished. The silence hung in the air like a TOD string. The world gradually drifted into slumber, waiting to reveal all its colors again with the first rays of dawn. Anna, a young woman of about 30, sat on the porch of her house, gazing at the night sky there, starshell like they only do in August. It seemed as if someone had sprinkled grains across the sky dipped in phosphorescence, it was. Chilly, Anna shivered and wrapped herself tighter in a light shawl. Yes, had it all gone away, the frost would come soon. It was sad and it hurt, but the pain in Anna's heart wasn't from the changing seasons. It was from the fact that she was now all alone. It had been 40 days since she had buried her beloved husband. Anna stared at the stars and remembered how she and Michael used to sit on the porch like this at night, with the same sky above them. Sometimes they even saw a shooting. Star Michael always managed to make a wish, but she never did. Then her husband would laugh and say, "Your wishes are too long, you should wish for something simpler." But what could be simpler? Anna simply wanted to have a child. But it wasn't meant to be. They had spent almost 10 years together, always dreaming of becoming parents. But doctors had given them various diagnoses, prescribed additional tests, and it had all been in vain. Anna and Michael even traveled to the capital city to see the best doctors. But they couldn't help Anna remembered how she waited for the results of her tests, how nervous she was. The result was always the same: infertility. Sometimes it felt like she was losing her mind. Sometimes she would walk down the street and peer into baby strollers. She loved looking at those little angels. She imagined herself walking with a stroller like that one day. But fate was relentless. Anna was barren. Michael had once mentioned the idea of adopting a child from an orphanage, but Anna resisted. She honestly confessed to her husband that she wouldn't be able to love someone else's child. She liked admiring children, but taking care of a child she hadn't given birth to, hadn't carried, was a boundary. She couldn't cross a level of squeamishness that a biological mother never had to think about. Michael understood his wife and didn't insist any further. So they lived in the countryside, and it's worth noting that they lived well. Michael was a farmer, and Anna worked at the library. They moved to the village right after getting married. In reality, they were both from the city, but they ended up in the countryside by chance when they got married. Michael's business in the city suffered a severe setback. He had a small auto parts store that used to bring in a decent income, but then the crisis hit, and another one. Michael realized that he was starting to operate at a loss. Meanwhile, Anna's grandmother in the village passed away, leaving her a small cottage. Anna's paddle grandmother had lived her whole life in that village. She was a sweet, kind old lady. Anna was deeply affected by her death, and her husband provided comfort. His support was crucial at the funeral. Michael surveyed the rural landscape, talked to the local residents during the memorial, and realized that there was a vacant niche to take up farming, so Michael sold his business. In the city, he took out a loan and started building a life in the countryside. Anna supported her husband's decision. In her childhood, she enjoyed spending time at her grandmother's in the village. And secretly, she had always dreamed of a quiet, peaceful life away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Certainly, Michael and Anna's parents didn't understand their decision, but they never asked, and with time, it became clear that Michael had made the right choice. Over the years, he managed to restore what had been neglected for so long. Ripe fields now waved in the wind, cows loaded in the barn, and modern machinery adorned the farmyard during the harvest season. A dryer hummed day and night so loud that the entire village could hear it, but no one complained. On the contrary, people were happy, because now there was work in the village, all thanks to Michael. Michael had boundless energy here on Earth. He suddenly realized that you didn't have to do business only in the city. Things could go well in the countryside too, next to Wawia's grandmother's cottage. He built a house, and together with his wife, they planted a garden after the form. Michael planned to start another venture, an orchard, not just one with apples and cherries, but also apricots, pears, and grapes. For this, Michael started studying horticulture. He could spend hours reading specialized literature. He even had a secluded corner in an old barn, converted into a study. There was light, a chair, and a table, and even a stove for the colder days. Anna couldn't understand. why he didn't just set up his study in the house. It would be much more comfortable there, but Michael laughed and said that he felt closer to nature in his makeshift study. He laughed, but he also made sure Anna didn't enter that particular barn when Michael wasn't around. It was always locked. His wife didn't take offense. She understood that it was best not to distract her husband from his new passion. After his regular job, Michael would read books for gardeners he even consulted. With nurseries a few times, he was well on his way to realizing his next dream. He had already prepared the plot for the future orchard. Everything would have worked out for him if it weren't for one tragic evening when Michael's back started hurting severely. During the day he had helped some men unload bags of cement, he thought he had simply overexerted himself, straining his back while carrying the heavy bags. Anna scolded him at the time. "Why do you take on all this work there? Are hired workers who get paid for it." Michael just waved it off, saying, "If I didn't help, it would have taken longer. Besides, it started drizzling, and the cement could have gotten wet." Anna just sighed, then applied some pain relief cream to his back and headed to the bedroom. Michael said he would work a bit longer. He wanted to acquire a new combine for the form, and there was a chance to qualify for a program that offered incentives, but it required collecting a bunch of documents, so Michael was double-checking if all his paperwork was in order. "You really don't take care of yourself." Anna shook her head. "Your work isn't going anywhere overnight. I'll just sit for half an hour." Michael weakly smiled and winced. "Your back is hurting. Let's go to bed just a little while longer." He promised his wife, and she left him to it later. She reproached herself for not waiting for Michael. Maybe she could have helped on that evening. She had barely touched the pillow before. Falling fast asleep when she opened her eyes the next morning, an inexplicable sense of unease gripped her heart. Michael wasn't by her side. Had he been working all night? Perhaps he'd fallen asleep on the living room couch. She got out of bed and headed to the living room. Michael was lying on the floor, face down. In that initial moment, Anna thought he was just sleeping. But then a shock surged through her. He looked unnatural. Something was wrong. She rushed to her husband and then froze. He was already cold. Anna began to scream. Her neighbors heard and rushed to help later at the morgue. She was told that Michael's heart had been as fragile as a piece of cloth, worn out like that of an 80-year-old man. How Michael had never complained about his heart, never drank, never smoked, and never got upset over trivial matters. To this, the pathologist wisely remarked, "Not complaining doesn't mean it didn't bother him." Yes, that was Michael. He disliked paying attention to his ailments. If something hurt, he'd take a pull and continue his work. He was always consumed by his work, and that's how he ended up burning out prematurely, a heart attack, an infarction, and death. Anna couldn't fathom that it could happen like this. People from the city, all the villagers and fellow farmers, came to bury Michael. Everyone respected him and genuinely mourned his death, but it was especially hard on Michael's parents. Anna couldn't believe that he was gone. After the funeral, Michael's parents insisted that she return to the city, but she refused. She couldn't abandon Michael's legacy. Of course, she didn't understand much about it, but she would figure it out. And for this, Michael's parents were grateful to her. The form meant more to Michael than just a business. It was his passion, and it would be a shame to let it all go to waste. Perhaps Ina could keep it going and even enhance his good name for generations to remember. And so 40 days had passed. In the meantime, a manager named Joseph had been taking care of all the farm and field responsibilities. He had a wealth of experience in farming. Having grown up in the area, Anna could rely on him. However, the woman was only now beginning to realize the immense burden she had taken upon herself, and stared at the night sky, her thoughts darker than ever. And then high up in the heavens, a bright star fell. Interestingly, this time it seemed to fall for an exceptionally long time or so. It appeared to Anna at least she had time to whisper her heartfelt words. What were they? She herself didn't realize immediately. And then she scolded herself. Why now, when Michael was no longer there? Now she was alone. And that's how she would be for the rest of her life. She vowed to never think about this painful topic again. But her heart couldn't be stilled that night. Anna whispered, "I want a child." The star extinguished. Anna shivered from the cold, sharp temperature. Fluctuations in August. During the day, it was scorching, and at night it was chilly. Oh well, as long as there were no frosts, it was still early. Anna sighed again, got up, and headed back too. Thoughts recede, but as Anna fell asleep, she still cried, remembering her husband, how she loved him, and she still loves him all night. Anna dreamed as if she were cradling a baby. She could even sense the sweet scent from the baby's head. The baby looked at Anna and she smiled back. She woke up with a smile on her lips. She remembered the dream and was surprised. Who was that, a boy or a girl? She couldn't tell. But the feeling of maternal happiness lingered, as if she had truly held her own child, her own flesh and blood. Yes, Anna didn't know who it was, but she did remember the child's eyes remarkably reminiscent of her husband's. Memories of Michael immediately wiped the smile from her lips. Yes, was a good dream. But now it was definitely an unattainable one. Anna let out a heavy sigh, got out of bed and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast in the kitchen. She grabbed the first cup she saw. Her hand froze. It was Michael's favorite cup. And this little spoon here, he always used it to stir sugar while the kettle was boiling. Anna sat in what used to be her husband's seat by the window, brought the spoon to her lips, and started to think maybe her parents were right insisting that she return to the city. Everything here reminds her of Michael. And that's what hurts so much. It's painful to realize that she will never see him again, never hear his voice. The kettle had long since switched off, but Anna still sat there staring into space. "I'm not going anywhere," she finally said aloud, as if someone else might hear her and reach for the kettle. After drinking her coffee, she quickly got ready and rushed to the library there waiting for her by the closed. Doctor was Ina, the woman she was going to hand over her duties to. To be honest, Anna felt a bit apprehensive about this elderly lady. Na had spent her entire life working at the village school, serving as the principal for many years. She was authoritative. A woman, a few words. But when she spoke, it was always to the point everyone respected. Na and her opinions were taken seriously. It had been 3 years since she retired, and she hadn't thought of working again until Anna decided to leave the library. Finding a new responsible worker in the village had been challenging, but no one wanted to dissuade Anna either. Everyone understood that if the farm were to fold, it would be tough for everyone in the village. They had been through that phase already, so the chairman of the village council approached Na with a request asking her to take on the responsibilities of the librarian for at least a year. Na fought it over for a bit and agreed. After all, who else? But her, "Take your time, Anna," she said instead of a greeting. "Oh, I'm sorry," Anna replied, slightly out of breath. "I didn't calculate the time properly. I overslept a bit. If you're going to lead our form like this, it won't go well." "I understand," Anna replied. Anna wanted to respond to Na with something sharp. Can you really be so curt with a former school principal? Besides, they would still have to interact a lot because there was plenty of work to be done in the library, checking all the books against the catalog, waiting for the district committee, and completing all the necessary paperwork took time. In the end, Anna and Nina left the old log library as the sun was already setting. "I didn't have time to go to the field today," Anna remarked. "Sadly, I hope Joseph can manage on his own." "He'll manage," Nina replied. "You can rely on Joseph. He's a good agronomist and a competent manager. But he still needs an assistant. He's not very good with paperwork, and he hasn't learned how to deal with the hups. Can you handle it, Anna?" "Yes, Na, I can't let Michael down," she replied softly. "That's the right attitude," nodded the former school principal. Now the librarian. Then Nina looked at Anna attentively and added in a gentler tone, "Dear, would you like to have a cup of tea?" "Yes, that's a good idea," Anna said, a bit flustered. "Come to my place. I haven't prepared anything. But we'll think of something." "What's there to think about?" "We have hot water, and that's good enough," Na replied cheerfully, giving a slight smile. Anna looked at her companion with different eyes. Now she no longer seemed stern somewhere along the day's work. They had even become friends to some extent. Na wasn't the harsh woman that many in the village called her. She was just an ordinary woman. She smiled kindly, almost like a mother. They entered the house. Anna bustled around in the kitchen while Na wandered through the rooms. Michael built a great house, the guest remark entering. The kitchen, everything is so solid and well made. He was a talented man, and you're an excellent homemaker. It's so cozy here, you needs this coziness, now. Anna replied, barely holding back tears. I don't want to be in the house. Everything? Reminds me of Michael. Tomorrow morning, I'll go to the office and then to the field. That's good that you're embracing this new endeavor with such enthusiasm, but you shouldn't tear your heart apart. Na sat down at the table and looked attentively at her hostess. I understand it's hard for you right now and everything reminds you of your husband, but you're doing it because that's what you want. Anna looked surprised at her guest, and Na continued first of, I'll get rid of all his things. Hide them away. Secondly, why is Michael's photo still in the living room? But it's customary, take down the photo. It's easy for you to say, nah, Anna sobbed. How can I? It's like betraying him, these things. These photos, they're the only things that warm my soul. You're talking nonsense. Na frowned, then sighed. Sadly, is it easy for me? Do you know what I've been through? And over a cup of D, the former school principal shared her own story. In her youth, back when she was studying in the city, she got married for the first time. She loved her husband to the point of madness. She was expecting a child from him and was planning to take an academic leave for that reason when tragedy struck. Her husband was hit by a car. He passed away in the hospital. Na, on the other hand, had a miscarriage at a late stage of pregnancy afterward. The doctors made it clear she would never have children. The young woman was devastated. Her beloved was gone, and the meaning of life seemed forever lost. Then her mother came and took Na to the countryside. Here she gradually recovered, completed her institute studies through distance learning, and started working at a school, and one day at a teacher's. Meeting in the district center, she met Bradley. He taught mathematics in another village, and he was a young and interesting man. Colleagues whispered he's a widower. His wife died during childbirth, and he's raising his 3-year-old son. Alone, when Na learned about this, she felt so sorry for Bradley and the little boy. She remembered her own story after the meeting. They accidentally bumped into Bradley at a local cafe where Na had stopped for deep. They smiled at each other, polite. Bradley suggested sitting at a nearby table, and they started talking about professional matters. That was the end of their first encounter. Later, they met several more times for work-related matters, and eventually Bradley came to visit. They had a heartfelt conversation Bradley's mother also liked. Nina herself realized that she was drawn to Bradley in short. They celebrated Christmas together as a family of 4. Bradley, his son Ryan, and his mother, they had a wedding in the spring, and since then, and Bradley lived together in harmony. From the very beginning, Ryan started calling Nina Mom, and he became her one and only beloved son. Many years have passed, and everything was going well for them. Ryan lived in the city now and was a high-ranking professional. He visited his parents with his wife and 2 daughters during holidays. Adored her grandchildren and eagerly awaited her son's visits. Wow, and exclaimed, I had no idea he wasn't your biological son. No one in the village ever told me anything about this. He's my true son, even though I didn't give birth to him. Smiled. People don't talk about it. Because it's something that's been forgotten. Maybe I became his real mother. Ryan knows everything, but it doesn't matter to him. That's how things turned out. Why did I tell you all of this? Anna, you must understand that life doesn't end with the loss of a loved one. And as she was leaving, repeated the phrase. Anna, life doesn't end. Remember that as Ina fell asleep, she couldn't help but think about the wise former school principal's words, and when she woke up in the morning, she prepared herself for her new job. Joseph was already in the office. When Anna arrived happy first workday, Anna, the old agronomist, smiled. Are you coming to the fields with me, or will you stay here? I'll stay here, Anna nodded. I want to study the documents, that's the right choice. Joseph agreed I can handle the guys in the fields myself, but I struggle with paperwork. If you have any questions, ask Maitline, an experienced accountant who had worked in the office for many years, helped Anna navigate through many issues in a single day. However, It was still clear that Anna's transition from a librarian to a farm manager wouldn't be easy, but all of a sudden Anne felt a surge of determination and realized that she could do it after all. There were good people around her who would help if needed. Yes, Michael had chosen the right team. Anna returned home in the evening, tired from dealing with documents, and her head was throbbing a bit from the paperwork, but this didn't shake her confidence as the new leader of the farm. Michael had converted into an office. She took the key, turned on the lights in the shed, and entered it. It was her first time in the shed since Michael had rearranged everything her husband had this court. He considered this place his territory and mentally apologized to the departed for intruding into his domain. Then, pushing aside all doubts and superstitions, she surveyed the room. She decided to place the boxes on the old cupboard that stood in the corner of this small office. Interest. In L, from the inside the shed indeed resembled a working office. Michael had lined the walls with plasterboard and painted them in a neutral color. He had laid a cheap carpet on the sealed floor. The furniture was old but suitable for a workspace. Michael had been skillful in organizing the space. Anna was surprised and wondered when Michael had managed to set up this office. She had always been busy with something, whether it was the library or household chores. Why hadn't Michael ever bragged about this decent office inside the shed? Why had he never let her in here, placing the boxes on the cupboard? Anna sat down in thoughtfulness, gazing at the desk and offering a sad smile. There were textbooks on gardening stacked neatly along. With some thick notebooks, Anna picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it. It turned out Michael had been taking notes and reading. There were also notebooks with what seemed like lecture notes. Apparently, he had taken them from former agronomy students. Anna placed the notebook on the table, pushed it closer to the edge, and then heard something fall from the table. She leaned down to take a closer look. It was a key, small, neat, and seemingly belonging to the desk. Driven by curiosity, Anna picked up the key and took a closer look at the writing desk. At first glance, there didn't appear to be any compartments that could be locked, but upon opening the largest cabinet door, she saw a small compartment that was securely closed, and that very key seemed to fit the lock inside click, and Anna froze. Could her husband have hidden something in there that she wasn't supposed to know? After all, they had a safe in the house for all their documents, money, and so on. It was probably just some gardening-related stuff. She thought nothing more. That's what Anna decided as she pulled out a small drawer inside. There was a rolled-up notebook. Anna picked it up carefully. There were no labels on the cover. She opened the notebook, and from the first lines, she understood that she had stumbled upon a secret, something Michael had kept hidden from her for all of their 10 years. Together, Anna couldn't fathom that her beloved husband Michael could be keeping something from her, but the writings told a different story. She read the diary with bated breath, page by page, as if devouring the information. It was Michael's personal diary. It is commonly believed that a man keeping a diary is something shameful or absurd. I used to think the same way, but then I realized that by putting my farts on paper, I could at least talk to someone, even if it's just myself, because I can't share this with the person closest to me, my wife. That's how Michael's diary began. As Anna read her husband's diary, she realized that he had a different life, a different woman. Michael had known Elizabeth, the other woman, since childhood. They attended parallel classes and began their first romantic relationship. In the 9th grade, after their graduation party, something happened between them for the first time. Michael deeply loved Elizabeth. He almost worshipped her. He even wanted to enroll in a law school to be with her, but he didn't have the required grades. Fortunately, there was a UND subscription that year at the Technical University, so Michael became a student there. However, he saw Elizabeth less and less, and it saddened him greatly, but she remained quite calm about it. Then Michael saw her with someone else. A guy pulled up to her doorstep in an expensive car, holding a magnificent bouquet of roses. Elizabeth hung on his neck at that time. Michael, a simple student, couldn't lavish such gifts on his beloved, but did fancy cars. And flowers really matter. He approached them and just looked into Elizabeth's eyes. "What do you want?" The girl laughed. "You're just a friend." "And I truly love Mex a friend," Michael asked, swallowing his heart. "What about everything we had just an experience?" Elizabeth shrugged and hopped into the car with Max. "Hey, buddy, did you get it?" Her new suitor condescendingly asked Michael, "Elizabeth is mine. I wouldn't advise you to approach her again." Hugh got into the car and they drove away, leaving Michael standing there feeling utterly humiliated. Yes, he wanted to shout, to run after them, to throw something at their departing car. But he restrained himself that evening. He got drunk for the first time in his life so much that he couldn't remember anything the next evening. He had a conversation with his father in the kitchen. His father tried to convince him that there would be many more girls like Elizabeth from Michael. His son disagreed. He truly loved her. But his father just sighed and shook his head. Time passed and Michael no longer sought meetings with Elizabeth. She didn't seek them either. Soon, he learned that his ex had married a rich man. The very max, it hurt him deeply. And he decided that he would never let another woman into his heart like that again. Yes, he had relationships, but nothing binding. He chose simpler girls after college. Michael ventured into business slowly but surely. Things were starting to pick up. But on the personal front, everything remained the same. Then he met Anna. Honestly, at first, Michael thought she was just like any other girl. They would dabble in love a bit, and then he would move on at first glance. And it didn't captivate Michael in any special way. She was an ordinary girl, an art institute graduate, a future librarian, but then something clicked. Yes, Anna wasn't a beauty like Elizabeth, but Michael realized that he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her beauty wasn't just on the surface. Anna seemed to radiate from within, and her eyes Michael could drown in those deep blue pools. Yet he still believed it wasn't love. True love was already in his life. And then one day he ran into Elizabeth. She and her husband had come to his auto parts store. Her husband, of course, didn't recognize him, but Elizabeth, pretended not to recognize him. It was only when her husband got distracted examining the label on some expensive motor oil that she quietly asked, "You live all alone?" and she smirked condescendingly. "I'm getting married soon," Michael replied immediately. Why did he say that? Probably out of spite. No, he had no intention of marrying Anna, but when Elizabeth heard his answer, she just shrugged. That irritated Michael. Oh, she doesn't care. Anyway, and neither does he. That same evening he proposed to Anna. God, how happy that girl was. Michael wrote in his diary, "It seemed like she looked at me as if I were a god, and I felt a bit ashamed. I swore my love to her. But there was emptiness. Inside me, I loved someone else. At that time, and later when I left the registry office with her, and later when I held her at night, everything changed when Michael's business encountered its first problems. Anna sincerely cared for him trying to comfort and support him. That's when he made the first comparison. How would Elizabeth have reacted in this situation? She would have run away without a second thought. But Anna was there unafraid of poverty or difficulties in the countryside. She was ready to go anywhere with him. It was in the countryside that Michael finally realized he truly loved Anna. That's where he saw her true beauty. Not just her captivating eyes, but her delicate skin, thick chestnut hair, and slender waist. Or had she become even more beautiful with time? And Anna was an excellent homemaker. She cooked deliciously. Their home was always cozy, and she never complained, not even during financial hardships or rural challenges at night. Michael held her with special tenderness, and during the day she worked tirelessly. Now they no longer knew any. Their home was picture perfect, and Michael was a respected man. Yes, he wanted children very much. If Anna's problems had surfaced at the beginning of their life together, he would have left her without a second thought. But now he couldn't, because without Anna, his life had no meaning. Then 2 years ago, he unexpectedly ran into Elizabeth again. Michael had gone to the city for another batch of spare parts when he suddenly saw her walking down the sidewalk. Yes, he recognized her instantly, even though she'd lost some of her usual luster and looked somewhat weary. Michael pulled over. He didn't understand why he did it. Perhaps he wanted his former lover to see his expensive car, and he looked presentable himself. Elizabeth recognized him, and she had indeed changed over the years. "Hello," she said hesitantly. "Hello." He smiled. "Need a ride?" Elise agreed, and as they sat in the car, a conversation started. Elizabeth explained that her husband had left her leaving her with no money, and she hadn't finished college. Now she worked as a cashier in a supermarket. "How about you?" Elizabeth asked timidly. "I'm doing great." "Michael?" replied with a smile. "Are you married?" "Yes, of course. Do you have children?" "Not yet." Michael replied briefly. Elizabeth fell silent, then burst into tears. Michael was taken in aback, pulled the car over, and tried to console her. Then everything seemed hazy, a cheap hotel room and braces. When Michael realized what he had done, he hastily prepared to leave the room. "Is paid for a day," he told Elizabeth. As he got dressed, "You can stay." "What about you?" she asked. Stretching, now she looked content and happy, and almost as beautiful as before. But Michael couldn't look at her. He felt ashamed in front of his wife. He truly loved Anna, and all of this was just a misunderstanding. Elizabeth not to call him again. However, she didn't calm down and sent him an SMS the next day, saying that she would tell his wife everything. That's when he called her himself. "Don't you dare call my wife," he yelled into the phone. "I don't know if you really pregnant with my child or not. What happened between us was a mistake. As I told you, I don't want a child from you, even if it is mine." Then, having ended the conversation, he regretted his words a bit. After all, he and Anna didn't have any children, and there was no chance of having any. But what could he do? Acknowledge Elizabeth's child, but then Anna would find out he couldn't hurt her. That very evening, he discreetly took Anna's phone and drowned it in the lake. The next day, he bought her a new phone with a new SIM card. This way, he hoped that Elizabeth wouldn't be able to reach Anna. The plan worked. No one bothered Anna. Elizabeth called him only after 9 months and informed him that she had indeed given birth to a child. "I could bring myself to have an abortion," she explained and chuckled into the phone. "I still want a family and children in the future. Let this child struggle so you just letting him struggle." Michael couldn't believe his ears. "What did you do with the child?" "I put him in an orphanage." Elizabeth simply replied he turned out to be sick. "No, if he were healthy, I would have kept him for myself in court. You would still have been recognized as the father, and you would have to pay good child support, but, there has not much joy in ruining your life with a sick child. So goodbye, and which orphanage did you leave him?" Michael gritted his teeth. Elizabeth didn't answer anything. She just laughed and hung up that night. Michael couldn't sleep at all. He was thinking about what to do. He had set up an office in the barn, started studying gardening, and kept pondering what should he do now. Here, he could calmly think about everything he needed an outlet to confess, and he began writing this diary. Described the past and contemplated the future. He couldn't to share his farts with anyone else. He was afraid to lie to his wife. And it was bet not to gossip with the men in the village. What were the men like? Sometimes they were even worse gossips than the most TKA of woman in the end. Michael decided to search for Elizabeth's abandoned child. Yes, it was difficult, but small bribes at the city maternity hospital and the guardianship that department help, he found out where the boy was. He was already 6 months old, and no one was in a hurry to adopt him. The reason was that the child had serious heart problems. At just 6 months old, he had already undergone one operation, and another one was needed, but it was expensive. Even if Michael sold all his property, he probably wouldn't have enough money to cover the cost. Meanwhile, he did a genetic test and found out that the child was his. But what should he do now? He confessed his affair to Anna before, so now shocking her with news of a seriously ill son was out of the question. Michael decided to keep it a secret. He just regularly sent money for his son's treatment to the same shelter while he searched for ways to find the money for the necessary operation. Yes, it became financially challenging, and the household had to stay afloat. Anna couldn't to find out about this additional expense, so Michael worked tirelessly. It was tough, but he managed only one night. His heart couldn't take it anymore. Michael's diary ended with these words: "I felt kind of bad today, like a stabbing pain in my heart when I imagined that my Philip might feel the same way it tears me apart. I'm a grown man, but he's just a little one. Well, I found a fund that might help my boy, and I'll definitely find a way to convince Anna to take him in. Yes, my wife won't know he's mine right away. Maybe one day I'll confess to her, but not now." With that, the diary ended. Anna reread the last sentences several times, tears streaming down her cheeks. He truly loved her. Yes, only her and that poor child as well. Oh, how hard it was for Michael. Why did he confess everything to her? Perhaps together, they could have found a way to help the child more quickly. Yes, the child was from his lover, but he was still his son. He stayed silent, suffering because of his infidelity and tearing his own heart apart, and now he was gone somewhere out there, lived a little boy with a sick heart. Anna cried and realized more and more that she didn't to resent her husband Michael. For Elizabeth, it was a mistake, an obsession, a ghost from the past, if you will. Michael, Anna whispered, "How could you? Why did you pity me? I'm strong. I could have handled your betrayal, but you couldn't. Live with it, but I promise you, I won't abandon our son." For some reason, this unknown child had already become Anna, Izone a part of her family, and she was determined to save the little one at night. She dreamt again that she was cradling the baby. Now Anna knew the child's name was Philip, and she could even see his face. Strangely enough, the baby resembled Michael. In the morning, Anna woke up washed up, got dressed quickly, and headed to the city from her husband. This diet, she knew which orphanage Philip was in, so that's where she was going. The guard at the shelter explained how to find the director, Samir. "Are you Michael's wife?" Samir asked, somewhat incredulously, when Anna introduced herself. Why didn't he come himself? "I'm his widow," Anna said softly. "Oh my goodness," Samir exclaimed, clasping her hands. "What a tragedy." "What happened?" Anna explained the situation. It seems to be hereditary. If Philip Samir paused, unsure if she should say more. "I know that my late husband, as son, is in this shelter. I'm not his mother, but I want to help him. Can you tell me what needs to be done? So you want to pay for the second surgery?" "I know Michael intended to do it, but the amount is enormous. Have you found the money?" "Not yet." "I don't know all the details. My husband didn't tell me anything, but I want to finish what he started. The child is innocent and shouldn't suffer." "You are right," Suer agreed. "I'll tell you everything I know. Michael found one foundation, but they can only provide a portion of the money for the child's treatment." Samir shared the details, provided the foundation's contact information, and then suddenly asked, "Would you like to see the child?" "I would," and he admitted, "Is it possible? It's not usually allowed, but I think we can make an exception." Soon Anna stood by Philip. Scrib, the baby, was asleep and his heart constricted. Yes, this child seemed to come straight from her dreams. The baby stirred, opened his eyes, and let out a whimper. Once again, Anna felt a deep connection with him. She saw Michael in the child's eyes. A nanny approached to tend to the baby, and Anna, along with Samira, made her way to the exit. "I will find a way to help Philip," Anna said. Before parting ways after visiting the shelter, Anna went to her parents' house. She didn't to hide anything and told them about Philip, explaining the details of the foundation as well. She also shared her thoughts that they might have to sell the farm in the future. Most importantly, she expressed her desire to adopt the child. "You lost your mind completely," her mother exclaimed. "This isn't your child, and Vi decided to sacrifice everything for this. How will you survive on a librarian salary? Mind you, you've already lost your place in the village, and you haven't found one in the city yet. Didn't you persistently invite me to the city after Michael's death?" And I reminded her, "I did, but not with someone else. This child is Michael's, conceived in infidelity, betrayal to you." "Mom, I know he regretted everything. Besides, you know my problems, and this child is from someone I loved, but now he can't help you in any way. How will you manage Al-Loon? With a child without money, I'll figure it out somehow." "I'm shocked," her mother exclaimed, even more angered, and called her father from the other room. "Dad, you have to talk some sense into her. She is doing the right thing," her father responded, appearing in the kitchen a few seconds later. "I liked Michael. People make mistakes, who doesn't? And women like Elizabeth, they don't inspire jealousy, they inspire contempt. So, daughter, do what you think is right. Your mother and I will support you, Anna." His mother let out a heavy sigh at her father's response, but remained silent in the end. They decided everything for her, and perhaps it was the right decision. Anna hadn't planned to adopt Philip until recently. She had thought she couldn't love a child who wasn't her own, but when she saw Philip at the orphanage, so small and vulnerable, her heart trembled. It didn't matter you had given birth to him. She would be his mother, caring for him, looking after him and loving him from her parents. Anna went to Michael's parents. They were surprised to see her daughter-in-law on their doorstep, then hurried to prepare the table for her. "You don't need to do anything." Anna stopped them. "I have a serious matter to discuss with you. Did you know that Michael had another child? Where did you hear that?" her mother-in-law asked, bewildered. "We never heard of it." Anna proceeded to tell them about Elizabeth. Michael's parents listened, then admitted that Christopher existed before their Sins marriage, but had chosen to keep it a secret, as the situation had been very painful for Michael. "So this Elizabeth has gotten involved in his life again?" Her father-in-law grumbled. "What a curse, Anna, you—" "Redoing the right thing," her mother-in-law said, "and thank you for telling us about our grandson. Now we have reason to keep going. Let's save the boy together." Don't doubt for a moment that day, Anna stayed overnight at her late husband's parents' house the next morning. She went to the hospital. Philip would never get it in the regular queue. "Are you related to the child?" he inquired, though Anne already knew the doctor couldn't disclose information to outsiders, not yet. "But I hope it's temporary." "What do you mean?" "I want to adopt Philip. You do understand that he'll be a challenging child perhaps, and it seems the expense of surgery won't be the last. I understand all that." From the hospital, Anna drove to the very foundation she had hoped would help. However, the girl there said the sum is too large and the waiting list is immense. All the children need urgent assistance, so in complete bewilderment and a return to the village by evening. When she arrived at Joseph's house, he had just returned from the fields. Seeing the new landlady, he freed his brow. Anna looked particularly worn out. "Joseph, I'll have to sell the farm," she said with a sigh. Then she proceeded to tell the estate manager the story of Philip. Joseph listened, shaking his head. "It's a tough situation," he remarked. "Of course you can sell everything, and the estate with all its property is worth much more. But, Anna, you can't do anything right now. It'll take about half a year for you to establish inheritance rights. Yes, you're right, I completely forgot about that," and admitted feeling utterly lost. "This is Michael's son. How can I abandon him? He's so little." Joseph pondered for a moment. "If there was time, we could wait until late autumn and sell the harvest at a higher price to the middlemen, but almost all of it is already gone on. And what about seeds for the next season? How will we feed the livestock through the winter, slaughter all the dairy herd? Can we really do that, Anna? Are you sure this child is Michael's?" he asked cautiously. "Absolutely. I found a certificate from a genetics laboratory in his documents." "Unbelievable." "Yes, it surprised me too," Anna replied, her voice breaking. "Don't worry, dear Joseph," comforted Anna, giving her a hug and patting her on the shoulder. "It hurts all of this. I see you're trying, learning and enduring, but in the end, he's still a child born as a result of your husband's betrayal. No, you're not jealous. It's just hurtful. Regardless, it's painful from every angle, and I confess I'm struggling with it. I find out things. I go through it. And yet deep down, he's just a child. Michael's child. How can I abandon him? Don't worry too much, dear. Your heart will find peace. You're doing the right thing by rushing to help that little one. Don't fret too much, girl. We'll figure something out. Maybe we can even save the estate." Joseph wasn't bluffing soon. All the farmers in the area knew that the late Michael had a sick son. The men organized fundraisers themselves, involved their acquaintances, and slowly but surely money started to accumulate. Anna, who was constantly torn between the village and her trips to the city hospital, became exhausted beyond measure. She was grateful to the people who were helping the boy, but it was just a drop in the ocean. Michael's parents didn't stay on the sidelines either. They even took out a loan to help their grandson, but the money was still insufficient. Then one day, Anna's mother, Amanda, came to the village. She had initially been skeptical, but realized she couldn't stop her daughter's determination. She arrived at the end of September, just as Anna returned from work and saw her mother, Mom, and exclaimed surprised, and then, "Pet, did something happen to Dad?" "No, your father is fine," her mother replied, shaking her head. "I'm here to help you. I'm sorry for not accepting this situation at first. You know, I have a tough character. I wouldn't have forgiven the betrayal, but you're different. I see that you're fighting for this little one. Relatives were calling me, telling me they had seen the boy. He truly resembles Michael, and indeed, the child is blameless. Mom, what's the point? Of all these words, Anna responded with slight irritation. She was exhausted from a long day's work and the calls from the clinic, and now her mother had arrived, probably once again ready to lecture her. "What's all this for?" Amanda replied, and opened a small purse from it. She took out an old jewelry box. Anna had never seen it before, but Amanda placed it on the table and opened it. When Anna appeared inside, her eyes widened. The box contained antique jewel earrings, bracelets, earrings. "Is this gold?" She could only manage to ask her mother. "Gold," Amanda Sly smiled. "And the earrings have real emeralds." "Mom, where did such splendor come from? We've always lived modestly. You're just a school teacher. Dad worked at the factory his whole life, and as far as I remember, our grandparents were simple laborers. Yes, we come from humble stock." Amanda nodded. "But your great-grandmother in her youth worked in the house of a wealthy merchant. Then, with the changing regime, the merchant managed to flee to England, and she helped him gather his belongings before his departure. So when everything was loaded onto the cart, men with pitchforks and axes came to the house. The merchant and his family had just managed to jump into that very cart. The coachman cracked the whip, but perhaps too forcefully, and the horse in pain and fear galloped as fast as it could. Some items flew out of the cart during the escape. She almost lost the small pouch from her grasp she wanted to return. But by then, the enraged men were chasing them. So they left your great-grandmother discreetly stash that pouch under a bush nearby. When the men went into the house to rummage through things, she managed to retrieve it, and she took it home with her. Only later did she realize how tightly the merchant's wife held onto it. These were her jewels. At the time, she was afraid that she'd be accused of aiding the merchants, guilty by association, but then she decided that she'd let the owners come for their belongings. She genuinely intended to return them. However, years went by, and she married a good man one day. She confessed to him that she possessed the real treasure. Her husband scolded her, asking why she didn't immediately return it to the new authorities. But now, how could she explain where it came from? So he scolded her, and then he buried that jewelry box in an iron barrel in the garden beneath an apple tree. It remained there for many years. Then the war came, and her husband went off to the front. She struggled to survive in the city. With her daughter, times were tough one day. She decided to make use of the treasure. She dug up the box, selected some less conspicuous pieces, and exchanged them for food at the market. But a week later, she learned that her husband had died. She cried, blaming herself. Think it was because she took something that wasn't hers, even though her own belongings were taken from her. She reburied the jewelry box and never retrieved it again. Shortly before her death, she told her daughter about the treasure buried beneath the apple tree, but strictly instructed her never to use that wealth since it was considered stolen property. Amanda's mother had remembered her own mother's words throughout her life, and she had only shared the story of the jewelry box with her daughter before her own death. Once again, she emphasized the importance of not touching the jewelry. What if the rightful owners showed up one day and no one must speak of it to avoid trouble? Amanda had always felt a superstitious fear associated with that box at their country house she often cast glances at. The spot where the apple tree had once grown, what treasures might be hidden there for a long time. She didn't tell her husband to prevent any temptation to use the treasure. What if it was indeed cursed? Eventually, she confessed to her husband. Jonathan laughed for a long time, dismissing it as a fantasy. However, one day he went to the country house, dug up the rusty barrel, and found the very jewelry box. Amanda scolded him vehemently for his actions and insisted on burying it again. When Anna told her mother about Michael's son, Amanda immediately thought of the jewelry, but scolded herself for even thinking of using it. She had no right. However, recently, she had a strange dream. She was walking through a field with blooming flowers, dragonflies buzzing around, and the sun shining brightly. A picturesque scene. Suddenly she heard a commotion overhead, a cry. Anna looked up, and there was a white bird flying with something clutched in its talons. A hawk circled nearby. Screeching loudly, the white bird dove downward like a stone brushed against Amanda's wing and released. What looked like a small box at her feet, save it, she heard a voice say, "It's yours?" As if the bird had spoken, Amanda woke up and couldn't understand the meaning of this dream. She told her husband about it, and Jonathan chuckled, suggesting that she watched fewer fantastical movies. But then they exchanged glances and paled as they realized the significance of the dream. Maybe it's time, Amanda hesitantly asked. Who knows? Maybe it is, Jonathan shrugged. But what if the jewelry is cursed and brings no good, Amanda? You know how much Anna is suffering. We feel for the little boy. What if it helps? Besides, I think your grandmother was more responsible for any curse. The death of your grandfather. It wasn't the fault of the jewelry. You know how many people perished during those times? Amanda agreed with her husband. They went to the country house the next day and dug up the jewelry box. Then Amanda visited her daughter, now sitting at the spacious kitchen table with her daughter. They discussed their next steps, to be honest. "Mom, you surprised me?" Anna shook her head. "I don't believe in curses, and these jewels could indeed help save Philip. But how do we use them? We'll need to find a way to sell them." "I'm thinking the same thing, dear. We need to find a trustworthy person. Do you have anyone in mind?" Anna shrugged. She didn't really have anyone in mind, except maybe Joseph Michael's loyal helper. Margaret unbuttoned her blouse and stared at him intently. "Don't you want to?" she whispered softly. "Margaret, fix your clothes," was all he said. "You'll regret this," she whispered. Then the unimaginable happened. Margaret suddenly screamed loudly, leaped off the lector, and ran through the institute in tears. She portrayed everything as if Christopher had harassed her and she had resisted. Later, Margaret reported to the dean that Christopher had repeatedly made advances towards her, and that's why he failed her in the exams. Thanks to her influential father's intervention, everyone believed Margaret and Christopher was in utter disbelief. He tried in vain to prove that it was all nonsense. He was suspended from work and faced criminal charges. Nobody knew how it would end, but it was his ex-wife who came to his rescue. Even though she had left him for someone else, she was still an honorable person. And her current husband happened to be a lawyer. He untangled the mess, insisted on a polygraph test, and only then was it revealed that Margaret was lying. She was expelled from the university, and not even her father could help the institute's administration apologize to Christopher and invited him back to work. But after everything he had been through, Christopher couldn't imagine working with students or interacting with colleagues who had been ready to condemn him just yesterday. Christopher resigned. He didn't know what to do next throughout this ordeal. He had been thinking about Anna wanting to call her, hear her voice, but he hadn't missed the courage, however. Just before Christmas, he suddenly realized that he couldn't go on like this. If you love someone, you have to tell them. And there, he was with Anna, gazing into each other's eyes. "Anna, I love you," he softly said. "I just want you to know that. But now I'm not a university professor anymore. Just an ordinary, unemployed man. Perhaps you don't need someone like me, I do," Anna whispered in response. They welcomed the new year together as a trial marking the beginning of a new life in the spring. Christopher actively immersed himself in work. The former historian proved to be a capable worker, particularly skilled in horticulture. Over the winter, he had studied all of Anna's late husband's notes and books, and he began laying out the orchard. Apple trees, cherry trees, raspberry bushes, and currant bushes were among his initial plantings. Christopher would disappear into the orchard for entire days, sometimes even spending the night on the property. He practically chased Anna out of the garden whenever she tried to help you have enough on your plate. "Go to the office," Christopher would tell her. Of course, he wasn't working alone. He had 5 hired helpers, and it was tough labor. Intensive work with results that wouldn't be seen immediately. 5 years passed. In the place of the former field now stood young apple trees laid in cherry branches. Rows of ripe raspberries and cants all adorned with plump berries. Chris Iyer also planted plum and pear trees in his orchard, along with apricot trees and sprawling grapevines. People from not only the neighborhood, but also the region would visit. For fruit and berries, treating it as a little excursion. Several times important officials even came to visit in short. The reputation of the fruit garden extended far beyond the confines of the small village. Christopher was often exhausted, but the garden had become his brainchild, and the purpose of his life, well, not entirely, his true purpose in life was his family. Christopher and Anna had married immediately after their first New Year together. Initially, Anna was deeply involved in the work, but gradually she stepped aside. She realized that she wanted to be just a woman and not a workhorse. Anna spent more time at home taking care of their son and creating a cozy atmosphere. Joseph, their son, now managed the fields and the farm. He had acquired all the necessary skills from his father and managed his responsibilities quite competently. Sometimes, as Ina looked at the waving fields, the grazing cattle, and the growing garden, she thought, could Michael have ever imagined that? His legacy would flourish like this. He would probably have been so happy. She remembered her first husband, of course, but with a gentle sadness. Her heart now belonged only to Christopher, and then 2 years after her second marriage, Anna suddenly started feeling experiencing dizziness and nausea. She had some doubts, but it seemed unbelievable. She went to see a doctor, and the physician at the local clinic had some delightful news for her. She was pregnant, but how can't this be? I was told before that it was impossible, she asked the doctor. There's always a chance, the doctor smiled, and your case is living proof of that. When Christopher learned of his wife's pregnancy, he became the happiest man in the world. Soon there would be 4 of them. Well, he was slightly off at the 4th-month ultrasound. Anna was revealed to be expecting twins, much to their delight. Anna gave birth to a boy and a girl. Philip was especially delighted because now he had both a little brother and a little sister, and he was the eldest, their protector. The only thing that worried the growing boy was whether they would love him as before. One day he asked his mom about it. "My little one." Anna smiled. "Our love won't go anywhere. You'll forever be our eldest and beloved boy. And a real family, of course." "Why do you ask?" Philip fell silent, then admitted that his grandmother, Amanda, and his mom had recently told him he was an orphan. Philip knew that Christopher wasn't his biological father, but his mother was, so he was confused. But his grandmother just sighed. Then he overheard her conversation with his grandfather. His grandmother mentioned that it was a common superstition that when you bring an orphan into the house, you subsequently have your own children. That's what happened with Anna. She adopted Philip, and that's how they got the other children. Philly didn't understand everything, but the idea that his mom had adopted him stuck in his mind. At first, he didn't say anything to his mom. He silently shed tears. But then he asked if his mom needed him. Anna had to confess the truth to her son. She assured him 1,000 times that she had always loved him and would continue to do so. Christopher joined the conversation, emphasizing that Philip was their true family. Their love and care alleviated the child's anxieties. And so these 5 years passed since Christopher and Anna got married. Philly was now 12, Sydney and Mark were 3. The kids got along splendidly. Philip was Mom's right-hand man. He helped with the little ones, read them books, and played with them. Sydney and Mark adored Philip, and he adored them. Sometimes Anna would contemplate her husband and children and wonder if she had ever imagined that her life would turn out this way. Certainly not there had been a devastating loss in her life that could have broken her, followed by the revelation that came after that loss. Yes, her husband's betrayal could have shattered her too, but she endured because her maternal strength had manifested itself to the fullest. She wanted to be a mother, and she became one. Philip's illness had shown her that there were wonderful people around her who could come to her aid, and sometimes even your own family members could work miracles. A miracle, yes, a miracle had happened in her life when a dead-end situation had turned into the beginning of a new path, a new chapter in her life. She had met Christopher. At first, she couldn't have imagined that their meeting would lead to something greater. Yes, there had been bad people on her path, but life had punished them on its own. And what lay ahead was a tranquil, steady life and happiness.